This is Brad A. Milford with the Unlimited Business Wisdom Podcast, where leaders, seasoned entrepreneurs, and business owners share their wisdom. It's straight to the point to respect people's time, and because we know knowledge and wisdom turn to business possibility, and possibility mixed with support and action become reality. In this podcast, we discuss leadership, sales, marketing, operations, team development, quality, and finance to drive sustainable results and everlasting impact to make the world a better place. Thanks for joining us. Hey, Justin, thanks for joining us on the Unlimited Wisdom Podcast show.
Brad, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, pleasure to have you. I'm really interested to dive into what you're focused on. I know you do multiple things, but you have a very unique focus nowadays in the present, and I'd love to know a little bit about that. Would you just start off by sharing with the audience who you are and what you do, Justin?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I'll go back to, kind of my early childhood. I grew up, both my grandparents were dairy farmers. So I grew up in the Midwest. I'm in Springfield, Missouri. So grew up on a farm. So learned from an early age how to work when you didn't want to work and work hard through that. So my grandpa was one of my favorite mentors I had growing up. So I learned a lot. And then I played sports. I played a lot of baseball growing up as well. That led to scholarships in college, and I played baseball in college. And then when college ended, I wound up getting a degree in design and went into marketing and publishing, and one thing led to another. Wound up getting fired, and then my wife and I went out and started our own thing, our own design company and commercial photography company about 10 years ago. And ever since then, we've been out on our own, and we've gotten into real estate investing, writing, podcasting, kind of, if you think of an entrepreneurial life, we're definitely living it as each day is definitely different.
Totally understand. Anybody listening, watching, and saying, yeah, we know all about that. Nothing is ever the same. It's always
Absolutely.
an expansion, some kind of growth, so some kind of learning. Never boring.
Never boring.
That's great.
That's definitely an understatement.
That is fantastic. Springfield, Missouri. I think I've been there a couple times. That's close to 𝐋𝐞𝐚𝐫𝐽, isn't it?
It is close to 𝐋𝐞𝐚𝐫𝐽. Yeah, we're just south or just north of 𝐋𝐞𝐚𝐫𝐽. So yeah, 𝐋𝐞𝐚𝐫𝐽 is one of the outlying cities. So
Yeah.
good city.
Seem to remember building the stadium, high school stadium there. So interesting.
Nice. It's a good
I know
stadium.
most
If you
people
built
listen
it, yeah.
and watch it, they're like, where's Springfield? So I'm not surprised that you are farm raised. There's a lot of farms in that area. So that's
A lot
interesting.
of farms. Love it. It's a good place to be.
Tons of lessons come from the farms. I did some farming like in the summers when I was young, and I'm surprised at what I learned. I definitely learned hard work.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know in my book, I kind of joke sometimes that a lot of my analogies or lessons go back to farming, just because I feel like there's so many things that are intertwined in business and life. And I was actually asked this last week, and someone asked, how can I get started investing? And I said, honestly, the best thing you can do is go plant a garden. And while that garden's growing, then go invest in yourself and learn business. Because honestly, the garden, the process of a garden, planting and waiting for produce and not getting antsy, and that goes a long way in business.
So true. Absolutely true. Good lessons there. And they run deep for thousands of years. They've been talking about that. So that's not just some,
Old
fly by
wisdom.
night like advice. That's some good principle based, solid advice. I love that. Justin, great stuff. And I also didn't overlook that you said that one of your greatest mentors was your grandfather. I love that. Every time I hear that, every time, an older elderly, I'd like to say, person is highlighted, for the lessons that they've passed on to those younger. I get chills, and that's such a great thing. And it seems to be eroding nowadays. So when somebody says that, it really stands out to me. And I love, I love just highlighting and showcasing that. So
Yeah. I loved him. He was great. And my biggest lesson from him was just listening, and something I'm still working on. But his ability to listen and not give advice unless someone asks for advice was was amazing. And that's something that's still, I know a lot of days people like to give their opinion on things, but he didn't do that. If you ask him a question, he would expand on it, and he had just a wealth of knowledge. And honestly, he only had a high school degree, and that was it. But he was probably one of the wisest men I knew.
Wow. What an amazing thought. You are so right. A lot of people love to give advice. Very few people listen thoroughly to meet people where they are. That's amazing. So that's great. Justin, I love the conversation already. What's the best thing about being in business?
I think the best thing about being in business for me is getting to enjoy the fruits of your labor. And I know when I was in the business world and I worked for someone else, I enjoyed working hard, and I enjoyed, working hard for someone else. But at the end of the day, you're kind of capped. And if you work really hard, you're really never going to make more money or have more free time than your boss. So I love the idea of being in business for yourself. And I know I can focus and I can grind for 3 months, and I can take a month break if I want. But those fruits, they all come back to me, and we get to steward those hopefully well. But I think that's been the greatest thing, is just having that complete control of time, and then being able to enjoy the fruits of our labor.
I love it. Fruits of our labor. I'm seeing a theme here already. So
Yes.
planting, harvesting, seasons, fruits. I say that jokingly, but also serious, because a lot of people nowadays, patience is a virtue, has been said for a long time. And these seasons, right? You don't harvest first. You have a season well before the fruits of your labor. So I love how you said, whether it's 3 months or 6 months, that delay of gratification is what I hear in what you're delivering. And it's so important nowadays. So great lesson.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, completely. That gratification muscle I feel like has to be formed, but it's definitely something that could be lacking in today's society. It's just we all want instant gratification through social media or whatever it is. So again, that's why I go back to the garden. I love the garden, get away from the tech and go back to the wisdom of old.
Good stuff. Good stuff. This is one of my favorite questions. As a systems guy, I love asking this question and just getting, a diverse range of people's thoughts and feelings, emotions. We hear from, like, nowadays, always, I mean, focus, abundance, right? So we hear from a lot of people that they're getting so much business that sometimes the chaos causes some form of overwhelm with people. Would you be willing to share your thoughts on that topic, Justin?
Yeah, I think that's a great thought. Great question, Brad. Yeah, for me, it's something that my wife and I have been working through the last couple of years, even. There's really, I guess it's the concept of, constantly moving the goalposts. And if you taste success, then you almost have to have your own boundaries and know that, once we get here or once we do this, we're going to maybe focus more on time instead of money. And I actually talked through this with someone several months back, and they were saying, hey, I set a goal of, $300,000 this year for my salary. I met it in the first 3 months. What do I do now? Do I work towards 1 million? Do I keep going? And my advice to him was, instead of doing this, because you've been grinding for 3 months, how about you work 4 hours a day, and then whatever comes, and you focus on your wife and you guys take extra trips. Funny enough, they're actually in Mexico right now on a vacation. But I think that's maybe the part that will help people, because I know there's a lot of burnout, and I know there's burnout in marriages, and from a kid's perspective, from business, whatever it is. But if you're constantly moving those goalposts, really, to me, what's the difference between $1 million and $2 million, or what's the difference between 10 and 100 million? Once you hit a certain amount, yes, money can help you take vacations and do things, but I do think that maybe once you set your goals at a certain amount, you switch that to your focus on time, like I said. So time with family and time with all that. So I do think that it can get out of hand easily if you're not consciously being aware of it. And that's something that my wife has definitely helped me with through the years, because I'm someone who would just grind and not look up. And then 2 years later, realized that I really hadn't maybe taken a day off in 2 years. So she's lovingly helped me with that.
I well said, well delivered, and well said. And the way you capped that much lovingly, he's lovingly serving you in that space. That's awesome. The way you said that. And it's a great point. So many of us go from the 9 to 5 to the 24/7 entrepreneur at
Yeah.
first. If you're building your own business, if you're bootstrapping, especially, and moving those goalposts, moving those goalposts, moving those goalposts, and that's our focus. And then there's always something, there's always another 10 yards to go, using that same analogy,
Yep.
right? And
Yeah.
so great points in pausing. Hey, you met your goal, right? You met your goal, so why not celebrate that achievement? Why not just pause for a moment, soak it in, celebrate, and then see what's on the horizon next. If you've mastered one game, maybe you want to take on another game or something, but how about a little celebration first? Great points.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I
Great
love that.
point.
And I like to think of it as, plateaus, and I'm kind of writing about them right now, but like, with plateaus on your uphill climb, if you're constantly climbing and constantly going, you're going to burn out. But you've got to have these moments of breaks, and during those plateaus, that's a time to celebrate and build more relationships and get ready for whatever your next challenge is, because you're always going to have another challenge. You're going to find something. I think it's more beneficial to find those reasons to celebrate more often than not.
Right on. This is a really great point. This is one that's not really been talked about a lot on this podcast, but it's a really important lesson. So, Justin, thank you. I think with younger entrepreneurs, so there's no judgment here on this podcast. With the younger entrepreneurs who don't know those signs yet, so they can burn themselves out pretty quickly. All right, especially if you're bootstrapping a company, there's just always something to do, right? You can literally work 24/7. With the seasoned entrepreneurs, I think over time, after a number of failures, which is some of them we're going to talk about, and another
Yeah.
of mistakes and falls and all that kind of stuff, you start to see the signs of burnout. So you can see them coming, but that takes experience. It takes years of experience. I mean, I know in my walk, I know the signs of burnout now because I've been burnt out a number of times. And
Yeah.
but not everybody, without having that experience, how would you know? So right. So the younger entrepreneurs, the greener, or however we want to describe that, pause every once in a while and evaluate that so that you're
Yeah.
not burning yourself out, or check with a coach or someone that knows or somebody that's more experienced, a mentor. The
Exactly.
seasoned ones, hey, it's your own fault. If you know it's coming and you're still doing it, pause anyhow. So great points, Justin. Thank you.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I love the mention of coaches and mentors, because I think that's what's so important. And I kind of mentioned that in my book too, about you don't have to experience everything to learn from it. There's so much wisdom of old. Like I said, I love my grandpa. I still love sitting down and talking with older men, 70 to 80 years old. There's so much wisdom. It doesn't matter what they did or what they didn't do. There's just so much life experience. There's, for me, if I'm talking to a younger entrepreneur, it's like, hey, you don't have to grind on your own. You don't have to go through every single experience. If you can come from a perspective of humility and seek out a mentor and say, hey, here's what I'm faced with. Here are my choices. What will it look like if I go here? What will it look like if I go here? Can you help me with this? I think that's where they would find the most benefit, is finding that coach or mentor that can help them.
That, my friend, is some really sound advice. So already, and we haven't even got to like the crux of this, but I am not joking. I mean, you know it. I'm sure you see it, and that's probably why you highlight it and you put it in your book as well. So many people trudge away independently. I talk about independence, interdependence all the time. And instead of just
Mhm.
being humbled and just saying, hey, I'm facing this decision. What are your thoughts? And you've been through this. What are your thoughts on this? Can you help guide me? That approach is a game changer. And some people just, I don't know what's the for doing that. So everybody listening and watching, I want to encourage you to really absorb what Justin just said. Just take a humble approach and seek someone who's been through that before that can help guide you. It's timeless advice. So
Yeah,
great
yeah,
points.
and the humility is the hard part, because you do, it's a balance of ego, because in order to start a business, you have to be confident in yourself, but you can't take that confidence too far where it turns into a cancer. So it is a balance, and I feel like there's just so many things. Overall, life is a balance in so many different areas, but that to me is one of the biggest balances of that: ego, humility, confidence, humility. Just find that balance, and if you can fine tune it early on, you will skyrocket.
Sound, very sound, timeless advice. Pride comes before the fall, my friends.
Correct. Yeah.
I always call it the big head. I've seen this so many times where people take on these contracts or they do this or that, and there's no way that they're going to be able to fulfill it, and yet they don't ask for help.
Yeah.
It's a sad way to go. So take the advice and put yourself in that position, my friends. Justin, great stuff. I'd I'd like to move on, which I know we have not limited time, but
Yeah.
we want to keep this to a reasonable amount of time. I'm enjoying the conversation. Who else successful like yourself, of course, might you suggest be on the Unlimited Wisdom podcast?
Yeah. There's so many people that come to mind, honestly. But the first one that pops in my mind is a guy who actually just joined his mastermind. His name is Aaron Walker. It's spelled Aaron, but he pronounces it Aaron. But he's got a book. I've read his book. It's called View from the Top. And you want to talk about wisdom and business wisdom. He's been an entrepreneur and investor for over 40 years. He's owned businesses, real estate, all this stuff. So I know he's someone that I can call now. And I shouldn't say this, but I look at him, as my grandpa now. It's like I can call him, and he's not as old as my grandpa. I'm not dissing him in any way, but he's as wise, honestly, in so many different ways. So I would say he would be an amazing guest if you can get him. But again, Aaron Walker, and he runs the Iron Sharpens Iron Mastermind. He would be an amazing guest.
Love that. And I don't know a person anywhere that would take that as a, being dissed.
Yeah.
Like so you just liken somebody to one of your greatest mentors. That's a wonderful compliment. So, but I see where you're headed with that.
Yeah.
This is great. Justin, what piece of advice, let's get to the crux of this, right? So I know there's a lot and it's really challenging to just come up with one, but what piece of advice or some short actionable things would you offer to other business owners coming from your perspective?
Yeah, I think my dad taught me a lot growing up, but one piece of advice that I feel like I've carried over into a lot of different areas is just it's really simple, but he always taught me that money is a tool. And so he said, it's a tool that can be used for good, or it's a tool that can be used for evil. And you can use it to beat others down, or you can bless others with it. And I think that's really helped me almost have the mindset of stewarding money. And so if I earn money, maybe I've worked hard, but it's not like I deserve money, or I deserve to like shower myself with like luxury gifts or anything like that. And I can take that money, and then I can use that money as a tool to maybe inspire someone else's day, or pick up a tab somewhere, or randomly do a kind act. And I've seen that over the years, and over the last several years especially. My wife and I have done things anonymously, and just to see the impact that does, where no one will ever know. Money really can be used in a great way and a good way to bless others. And I think so many people, especially I grew up in the church, and especially people in the church can be like, oh, we don't money. We don't want anything to do with money because it's just evil. And I don't think that's true at all. So I've seen a lot of different ways how money can be used as a tool. So I would just encourage people to use money as a tool to bless others, and not to just, greedily build your own empire, but help build others up along the way.
I love that for many reasons. Like you, I have seen many people struggle with that. Even when it comes to their sales, they're bootstrapping a business, but yet there's a block they have, this courage in offering their own products, right? Because there's this block that they carry with them because of young money mindset issues or whatnot. And so
Yeah.
I love that you just brought that up. Like money is a tool, is what I heard you say. Money is a tool, right? And what I really love about what you said is there's the wording, like stewarding money, right? That's a very intentional word.
Yeah,
And I imagine it comes from your upbringing, right? It comes from the church. It's
for
most
sure.
commonly used in the church, but it's a great word because there's so much intention in that word. If you're
Yeah.
stewarding money, that is a whole totally different statement than learning about money, or I mean, it's just different. Would you be willing to speak into that a little bit?
Yeah, yeah. If I can, like, I guess, dig into it, to me, if someone's giving you money for a service or product or whatever it is, they're trusting you enough to give you money and then for you to return value. So in that transaction, I mean, that's obviously where it begins, but just the fact that someone is giving you their own hard-earned money to do something, to me, that allows you to take that money and then steward it into, something else that's of value, or maybe you find someone else that does the same thing and gives the same value. To me, when you hang on to money, you lose that stewardship part of money. And if you're collecting it and you're hiding under the bed and all this, it really takes away from, to me, the velocity of money. And I think there's power in the velocity of money, and there's good things that can come from that. So yeah, if I'm saying steward, it takes me back to, it's not necessarily mine. I don't have to say, well, I made this money, I deserve this. It's more along the lines, I had the opportunity and I had the relationships around me that poured into me to help me make this money. And I want to use this money in a good way going forward, and not just store all these treasures up for myself and then be alone in the end, if you will.
Nice. And well, that is a great picture. Unfortunately, it does happen to
It does, yeah.
too many people. Well, let's say too many. Even one person would be too many, but
Yep.
it does happen. Great topic. So stewarding can be, hey, I'm going to take that money, I'm going to invest in myself to grow myself so that I can create more value in the world and create more impact and serve people at a greater level. Or it could be, hey, I'm going to take that and I'm going to give some of it to charity. Or it might be like, hey, I'm going to take it. I'm going to invest in someone else, or I'm going to create a new
Yeah.
company or a new stream of income to be able to serve more. Like, there's so many ways, but I love the use of the term. And so since you used it, I definitely wanted to highlight and showcase the intentionality behind that word.
Yeah. No, that was
Great,
good.
great stuff, Justin. I want to break from that for a minute and talk about like one of your big focuses right now. So you talk I don't want to say a bunch. I don't know how to quantify it, but a bit about failure and professional failure. And would you be willing to speak into your thoughts about that and how you're campaigning around that initiative right now?
Yeah, I know that the topic of failure can be touchy, and it's funny. I go back to even when I really didn't tell too many people I was writing this book, including my parents. So when I told my parents finally that it was done, I was going to release it, I told my mom the title, and she was like, Justin, but you're not a failure. And I'm like, I know, Mom, that's the point. So I think there's just so much around that word that scares people. But to me, I really want to tackle that insecurity or fear around the word, because to me, we should be chasing failure, we should be going after failure and not be afraid of it, because there are so many lessons within failure. And the other thing I love about failure is that it really does connect us from a human standpoint, because at the end of the day, we're all imperfect, we all still make mistakes, no matter how powerful we are or how, what position we're in, we all still make mistakes, and there's still things that we all struggle with. So for me, it goes back to the mentor thing too. If we can open up and say, hey, this is where I messed up. This is what I learned from it. And this is what I'm trying to do going forward. That can not only help you like relieve that pressure of failure, but it can help someone else down the road. So I think if we can learn to talk through those failures with each other, I mean, there's moments of laughter, there's moments of, crying. There's so many different moments within that. But I do think there's some therapeutic value of talking through our failures instead of trying to put on this, perfectionist persona that we've never made a mistake and that's why we're here and that's why we're successful. To me, success is built by learning from failures and not from making every perfect decision along the way. So that's really what I'm trying to hammer home is, hey, let's figure out how we got here, what the mistakes we made, why we don't make them anymore, and then help someone else, be better for the future at even a younger age, and they can taste success at a younger age. I think that'd be awesome.
I love this topic. And so there was no way we were getting off this podcast without talking about this. So
I love it.
I consider myself a mistake expert. And so the mission that you're on with this particular topic and others, I'm sure, but this one really resonates with me, Justin. And it's, we hear these things on social media today, like, fail fast, falling forward, and all these kind of catchy statements, right? But it doesn't really, I mean, it helps the mission, right? It helps to be able to have those conversations, but I'm not sure even it's gone as mainstream as it needs to. Like there's a deeper
Yeah.
lesson there. And so I'm really celebrate you for this mission. I I lived most of my life, 40 years, being angry about my failures and why things were so hard and just blaming and victim and all that kind of stuff. Unknowing,
Yeah.
unknowingly. I mean, it didn't set out to be that way, but I'm sharing vulnerably because this speaks to me, right? I didn't
Yeah.
know any better. Nobody taught me. I didn't have those mentors. And so this mission is a very important mission to get this more mainstream, to say like your failures are not failures. My mom, surprisingly enough, taught me this thing that stuck with me, and haven't been able to. I don't know who actually quoted it, but it stuck. It stuck all through my life. Every failure is a success because it leads to the insight necessary for learning.
I
And
love
so
that.
even though I had that with me, I still felt like a failure most of my life. This is a
Yeah.
big problem. I shared this to highlight and showcase the work that you're doing, the book, the things that you're doing, you're putting into the world. It's still very, very needed. And the younger we touch people, the younger people are able to learn, whether it's 10 or 12 or 5 or 20 or 30, or it doesn't matter. Like it's ageless. The better off we will all be when we're able to have these humble conversations with one another. So
Yeah. I fully
stewarding
agree.
failure, Justin.
Yes, I love that. I'm gonna start using that going forward. Stewarding failure. That's good.
I love it. It came from you. It came from you. So thank you for all the efforts and all the work that you're doing within
Yeah, I
this
appreciate it.
domain or this area. Very
Yeah.
important stuff. I believe that and I imagine you share this too. I can tell it's resonating from it comes from you, but I believe that we work to live, not live to work. I mean, you've already spoken into a little bit in terms of high achievers and pausing and all that kind of stuff. Because of this, I ask every guest, like, what's the most fun vacation you ever had? It's to get to know each other a little bit better outside of the business. I'm sure we could talk business forever, but getting outside that, what's the
Yeah.
most fun vacation you've ever had, Justin?
Yeah, we kind of, I'll start out. We kind of, I don't know if we cheated the system, but for a while we were doing stock photography. So we would take these quote unquote vacations and we would go these, places and we'd bring a camera and we take stock photography everywhere. So uh, that is probably one of my favorite trips. So it was a vacation, but then again, we did take a camera, so we were kind of working. So, but we didn't work the whole time. But anyway, we actually wound up going to Greece and went to Greece for about 3 weeks. And we went to 3 of the top 10 beaches in the world. And one was 2 were in Crete, and then the other one I believe was in Santorini, or if I remember, we were in Santorini, Athens, Crete. We got to see a lot of history, and just spending 2-3 weeks over there was really amazing. And we took a lot of really fun pictures. So it was just my wife and I, and we stayed in some places that were almost built out of, like, I forget what that mud is that they create houses with over there, but no AC, completely different experience than what I grew up with. So that experience, all in all, was probably some of the most fond memories I've had. Just watching sunsets. I remember a picture in particular of the Dingle Peninsula. I don't know if you actually, I take that back. That was in Ireland. That was a separate trip. That was another great trip. But just the pictures in Greece, looking back, and we've got all those, and it was pretty amazing. We'd love to go back. And actually, now that I think about it, I don't want to take too much time, but the last day we were in Athens. If anyone ever winds up going to Athens, there was a natural spring that had those fish that like bite on your ankles or your feet. I don't know if you've ever been in those before, but you'd
Yes.
wade in and you'd have hundreds of fish like kind of eat the dead skin off your legs. So we actually wound up finding that, and we found it in the morning, and we paid $20 to get in, and we had some chairs by the pool. So I would basically read for 30 minutes, and then I'd get in the pool or the lake and I'd swim back and forth, and I'd get out and then I'd have a snack. And I did that like for 8 straight hours. And it was one of the most enjoyable times with my wife, where it was just, we didn't have anything to do. We just relaxed and really enjoyed what Athens had to offer. So that was one of the more special trips that we had.
Good stuff. I love it. Fun times with your wife, just
Yeah.
traveling, making some money along the way. Can't
Yeah.
hurt, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I guess I'm gonna have to do some research. I know exactly what you're talking about. I think it's clay and calcium. But the white
Yeah.
build, you're talking about the way they paint the buildings white, right? I think it's
Uh-huh. Yeah.
calcium.
It is
But
calcium. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I'm not
yeah,
sure how they built, but it was definitely different. So it was an
I've been
experience. So it's
there
fun.
and I spent a lot of time in Spain and they use the same product. So that's what I think.
Okay.
That
Yeah. I
white.
want to go to Spain. That's another place we want to go. We want to visit Spain someday.
We'll talk. We'll talk after the
All right.
podcast.
All right.
We'll
Deal.
share stories. So,
I love it.
all right. I appreciate that. Justin, this has been great. I appreciate, like, there's been a theme throughout, right? So the growth theme, which is fantastic, like timeless, principle-based stuff. Great. The garden, and it's really good advice, right? Just throughout, but there's been a theme about growth there. It's also been a theme throughout this podcast about humility and how you serve. And so I would be remiss if I didn't just call that out and really highlight and showcase that.
Yeah.
That really shines. That is definitely one of your gifts by far. And so I really want to celebrate you, not only for just taking a chunk out of your day to be here to serve, but the way you deliver, the way you delivered everything so eloquently. So thank you very much for who you are. When
Thanks, Brad.
somebody when I hear this and they're like, I have to reach out to that guy, what's the best way for them to reach out and contact you?
Yeah, the best way you could go to my website would probably be the best way. You can go to www.professional-failure.com. And I've got all my social media links and then a contact form there as well. And then, yeah, my email is just justin@professional-failure.com. So if you ever have any questions or want to connect, I'm happy to help in any way I can.
And go and grab his book. So we'll
Yes,
put a link
yeah,
down below to the book as well. So that's one of the greatest ways to really get involved in somebody's gift. So
absolutely,
again,
yeah. And if you want to listen to my voice for 3.5 hours, it's on Audible as well. So you're free to do that.
nice. Awesome. Justin, thank you so much. I appreciate you being on and thank you for everything you do. Thanks for
Well,
joining us.
thanks, Brad. Appreciate you having me.
This is Brad A. Milford with the Unlimited Business Wisdom Podcast, where leaders, seasoned entrepreneurs, and business owners share their wisdom. If you're looking for more on leadership, sales, marketing, or operations to drive team development, higher quality, and high level sustainable profits, we encourage you to join the Built for Brilliance community on Facebook or reach out to us about one of our mastermind groups, coaching or consulting, or even fractional COO services. You can reach us at buildbrilliance.net/contact. We thank you for listening, for sharing the show, and appreciate your rating and reviews, as this makes more shows possible. Thanks for joining us.